So let us see something about requirement validation. Okay. So what is requirement validation? It is concerned with demonstrating that the requirements define the system that the customer really wanted. Okay. The customer wanted a system, and for that we are finding out the requirements. So now we are validating that yes, this requirement is the same requirement that the customer wants. For this, we may have to interact and finalize it, that is we will see in the next slide, but we have to understand that here just we are trying to verify and validate that yes, the requirement is correct. Okay. Because if there is some error in requirement, then the same erroneous requirement will be implemented, and after implemented it may be delivered also, and after delivery if it is found that there is a requirement error, then the cost of doing or implementing it will be much more, sometimes 100 times, right? So let me show you what are the checks that you should do. Something is validity. What happens in validity? We have to check, does the system provide the functions which best support the customer's need? Okay. According to the customer needs, that whatever the functions we have noted down or we have understood, these are enough for meeting the customer needs or not. The second thing is consistency. Consistency means, are there any requirements conflict? We have talked with several stakeholders. All the stakeholders agree on this particular thing, or their views are different, or whatever the requirements, whatever the needs these stakeholders have shown to us, whether they all are same or some of them are different also. If it is different, then it is conflicting. Okay. So there should not be any conflict. Completeness. Are all the functions required by the customer included or not? All the functionalities that the customer wanted, all those functionalities are included in the requirements or not. Realism, that whatever these functionalities we have shown here, is it real, is it feasible according to the budget and available technology? These are the few things we have to understand here. Then verifiability. These requirements which have been written here, can we verify these requirements? These requirements sometimes, like it should be fast. How can you verify that it is fast or not, right? So you should keep it verifiable. How this fast term can be verifiable? You define what is fast, that 60 frames per second, a speed of 60 frames per second is fast enough, then it's okay, it is verifiable. So these are few things, you should note them down. Let me tell you how what do you do, how do you validate, right? First thing is requirements review. You perform certain review, you will see some more detail on this, but you have to understand that first thing is requirement review. You perform a systematic manual analysis of the requirements and try to understand, try to validate, try to check all those things. Prototyping, using an executable model of the system to check the requirements, whether it is okay or not, whether it is feasible or not, whether it is testable or not, these kind. Test case generation. Here you develop the test cases, that whether it is all the requirements are verifiable or not. Okay. Let me talk about requirements review. So what happens? You go through the document, requirement document, and you try to understand whether it is correct or not, right? So Requirement review should be held while the requirements definition is being formulated. Both client and customer staffs should be involved. They both will sit down and check out yes it is correct or not, yes it is okay or not. These reviews may be formal or informal, okay, but one thing is they will have to communicate with each other, so they should be good communicators. So good communication between developers, customers and users can resolve the problems at an early stage. So what are the review checks? The same thing, verifiability. Is the requirements realistic, testable or not? Comprehensibility. Is the requirements properly understood? Properly understood means understood in detail or not, right? Traceability. Is the origin of the requirement clearly stated or not? Adaptability. Can the requirement be changed without a large impact to other requirements? Okay. So these are the few things related to this. Okay, so the next thing is about requirements management. Requirements management is more like managing the changes. Okay, so change request might come anytime, so you have to understand that thing. So here in requirement management we are trying to understand about the change management kind of things only. So requirements management is the process of managing changing requirements during the requirements engineering process and system development. So these requirements might be changing, no issues, right? So these changing requirements should be handled properly. New requirements might also come, so we should be able to handle those kind of things. You need to keep track of individual requirements, all the requirements being implemented, and maintain links between the dependent requirement so that you can assess the impact of requirement changes. Okay. So these are the few things. Now these changing requirements. Okay. So the business and technical environment of the system always changes after installation. New hardwares might be introduced, other softwares may be introduced, some priorities may change, whatever the legislation and regulation of government may change. So these kind of things might be there. The people who pay for a system and the users of that system are rarely the same people. Okay, these people are not the same. So system customizers impose requirements because of organizational and budgetary constraints. These may conflict, and they conflict with end user requirements. The end user wants something which is different from these people. These customer who are paying, they may cut short some of the requirements. However, if you are not able to negotiate on it for the end users, then somehow the system may result in unusable or not usable system, right? And also after delivery, new features may have to be added for user support. Okay. So one thing is, large systems usually have a diverse user community. Okay, so if you are working on large systems where you may have many users, these users may have their priorities for the requirements. Okay, some of the users may give priority to some other thing, and other users may give priority to other features. So because of that, these few things you will have to understand and talk to other peoples, right? So sometimes here what we are thinking is, whatever requirements we have done, we should include these all the things, but still sometimes it happens that some change request may come, that these are the things which for which we have given less priority, this should also be fast, and these kind of things may come. Okay. It is often discovered that the balance of support given to different users has to be changed. Okay. You need to evaluate the requirement. Evaluation, let it be evolution we are talking about here. What happens is, you will understand the problem. After understanding, you understand the requirement. This is the initial requirement. Okay. So whatever requirements is known, after that some understanding will change. Okay. So your understanding of the problem will change, and accordingly the changed requirement will be developed, right? How you will plan for the requirements management. Okay, establish the level of requirements management detail that is required. Here actually in planning we are trying to understand that there will be certain level of requirements management detail. Okay. See, requirements management decisions, requirements identification, a change management process, traceability policies, tool support. Requirements, okay, some more are there, let me. Requirements identification means each requirement must be uniquely identified, given some cross reference, whatever. A change management process will be there. This is the set of activities that assess the impact and cost of change. So we will see this thing later also. Traceability policies. These policies define the relationships between each requirement and between the requirements and the system design that should be recorded. Tool support. The tools that may be used range from a specialist requirements management system to a spreadsheet and simple database systems. So whatever the things related to this change will be required to be mentioned earlier, right? So here you have to decide if the requirements change should be accepted or not. What will you do for that? You will have to analyze the change specification. So problem analysis and change specification. You will analyze the problem, that this is the problem, whether the change is really required for this or not. After that you go for change analysis and costing. You try to understand that if this change is done, what are the linked requirements which will be affected, and they will also need to be changed, and what will be the cost of this particular change. Then there will be change implementation. The requirements document, and where necessary the system design and implementation are modified. Ideally the document should be organized so that changes can be easily implemented. Okay. Let me show you the same thing in a diagram. We will try to analyze the problem and specify the changes. We will try to analyze the change and cost, find the cost, and then we will implement the change, and we will get the revised requirement. So in this video actually what you understood was there can be these things related to, if you want to gather the requirement, there were interview, scenario, use case, ethnography, these kind of things. After that there are requirement validation. For this there are certain kind of checking: validity, consistency, completeness, realism, and verifiability. Okay. Now these business, organizational and technical changes are inevitable, right? And these actually lead to changes in the requirements for the software system. So requirement management is the process of managing and controlling these changing. Okay, where you try to understand these are the requirements which need to be changed, whether these changes are feasible or not, accordingly they will be implemented. So these are few things that we have learned in this video. We will see some more things later on. With this requirement engineering part is complete. Later we will try to see some more things related to UML diagrams. Okay, thank you.